What's up, guys? We're here again today. We're going to do a January fishing report. It's the 27th of January, so we've kind of had the month to be on the water. For me, it's been tournaments and guiding. I know Chip's been on the water doing some tournaments and I think you had a tournament. I think you've been doing some guiding, and you've been doing a lot of
It's
scouting too. So you've been like living on the water there on Lake Murray.
oh yeah,
So we got some great information for you. Just kind of keep you up to date. This is that time of the year where it can be kind of slow, right? So you really, you got to be effective with your time on the water, and definitely if you're going to brave the temperatures, you need to make sure you're in productive areas. And it's kind of what we're here for today. Is we're going to give you some of the better spots on the lake and what baits to throw, what to look for, and what'll kind of make it to where your day is as successful as possible. So with that, we'll kind of start off with lake conditions like we always do. One thing that I have seen is it looks like the lake's come down a little bit. I think it's at 355, which is kind of weird. I know we were thinking that it's probably not going to come down that much. I do think that, obviously they forecast a lot of the winter weather that we've been having, so they're kind of trying to compensate for that and some of the snow in the mountains that'll eventually get here. There's also probably some other reasons, I'm sure, but I know right now it's at 355 30, 355 32, something like that. So it's a little over 4 feet low from traditional full pool. So that would make it to where some of those docks are starting to get out of the water, the really shallow ones, starting to lose some of the water on the front of the dock. Some of the shoals are starting to get almost unnavigable to where you can drive over top of them. So you got to be very careful with that. If you see one of those white shoal markers, make sure you go around it or give it way. And obviously, I'll kind of turn it over to Chip and let him tell me a little bit about what he's seeing out there as well. But I know the water level being down a little bit is something that we are seeing, and obviously the weather's been crazy too.
oh yeah. And well, I think a couple months ago I mentioned there was some debris that had washed up from the hurricane on the Plantation Point shoals.
Yeah.
That obviously, I think that is now gone. It's washed away somewhere, but as you mentioned, there's one shoal on Plantation Point that don't try to drive across it. Even usually in a full pool, I don't drive across. It's the one closest to the Macedonia side. That buoy is gone, and last time I checked, you got inches of water. If you go by it, you can see the color change. You can see the clay bottom. So just be aware of that. But yeah, the water has come down. So is the water temps. Water temps 43, 44 is what I'm seeing. I've fished a little bit around Dreher, but I've mainly been up from Holleek and above for the striper anyway. We finally got into those big fat fish, that we typically see in October, November, but the hurricane messed all that up. But now we're seeing a ton of, 8 to 12 pound fish that probably typically are, your 7 and 9s. We're seeing a lot of big, bags, I guess you want to call them. Our tournaments are 2 fish, but now it's taking over 20 pounds to get a check. You better have 2 pounders, 2 10-pounders. But we're, fish, water's cold. The majority of the fish have fallen off into the channels just because of the cold water, and that's where the baits went. The baits went into the channels. On a good sunny day, you can see some bait kind of up on the flats, trying to get warm a little bit. But on the striper side of things, we're still pulling boards, down rods, free lines. I'm moving. I do not sit still this time of year and have fish come to me. You want to look for your numbers, get on the edges of the channel. That way you can fish the channel and the flats. If you're looking for big fish, you need to get up on the flats, the points. The big fish are always shallow when they can be. That's kind of what we've been seeing on the striper side. If y'all want some other reports, the crappie's been really good. Open water fish are really throwing up. I've seen schools of thousands and thousands of fish, but they won't eat. If you find those schools that are more like, I don't know, 30-ish fish or so, those fish will eat, in open water. There's still a little bit of fish on brush, but I've been kind of chasing those open water fish. Catbite's been great. Ran a trip Saturday on a catbite. Had a little kid's birthday party out there, and we had some really nice fish. Cats are from the elbow through the rivers, 30 to 50 feet. I caught them on perch, I caught them on herring, and I caught them on gizzard shad. Saturday, gizzard shad outproduced everything. What else we got? We got perch. I don't know if y'all have seen any of my reports on perch, but they are huge. Catching a ton of pound plus perch. About 40 to 50 foot of water on points. Macedonia's been good. Hollow Creek's been good. I haven't been down lake, but I'm sure Bear would be on fire right now with those big perch if that's what you like. I'm catching them on toughies and some crappie jigs. You could probably catch them on spoons. I just don't mess with spoons much. But overall, it's been a pretty good winter so far. I'm waiting for it to warm up. Been running through about a half a tank to 3/4 tank of propane out there on the water. It gets knocks the edge off.
Yeah, tell me about it. I just got back from a tournament that I was at all last week, and man, it snowed on us, and it was down into the upper teens one morning, and man, I'll tell you what, it was like we had an upper 20s start for the tournament, and I was like, golly, this is a hot streak right here compared to that. So that's very untypical here for South Carolina. But yeah, so for the bass side too, we've been seeing the water temperatures. I've been mostly fishing. If you know me, I like to fish that Dreher Island kind of down towards the dam section. Not saying that above there isn't productive, because it definitely is. If that's your style of fishing, you want a little bit dirtier water. And, shallow bite's good, up the lake, down the lake. Pretty much all winter, I stayed shallow for the most part, especially with that water staying up. That's what I was really looking at. And, with that water staying up after we had Hurricane Helene, a lot of those fish stayed on the bank. Docks are really, they've been great for all of January, for me at least. Channel swings, you can pull up and, you can actually use your sonar and look underneath there, and you'll see like 20 or 30 fish sitting up underneath some of these docks. And, what I like to do is I'll have, kind of a milk run of like, 30 or 40 docks like that just have them. And, you just kind of go and cycle it, and you try your different baits. Really great productive baits for this time of the year are going to be your A-rigs, a worm like a shaky head or a drop shot. A jig starting to play a little bit. We are starting to get a little bit on the jig. You're going to get a lot on crankbaits too. I actually last Saturday fished the BFL, had a solid finish in that one. Caught, I believe, 3 of my fish that I weighed in, 2 or 3 of my fish I weighed in on a red, like a square bill crankbait type deal. And, just up there, boat ramps, rip wrap, chunk rock, just the natural rock inside of Lake Murray. Definitely had to be, kind of hitting the bottom to kind of trigger some of those strikes. And I will say, whenever the water temperature, just a little thing that I like to do is, whenever the water temperature gets below, I'd say like 49-ish, instead of just doing like a straight retrieve with that crankbait, almost kind of fish it like a Carolina rig, like kind of go like this and just kind of pull it, and then while you reel like that. And a lot of times those fish will just kind of load up on it, and you can catch them like that. I caught one that was a 5.5 pounder in that tournament doing that exact same thing, and I think it made a difference. Also, repeated casts is very important when it gets cold. There was a boat ramp I pulled up to in that tournament. I think I made three casts to it, didn't get a bite, the exact same cast, but I just kind of like everything set up to where it was like, man, there should be one here. 4th cast, flipped, went up there, caught one that was like a 3-something, and it was good. So repeated casts, make sure you're slowing down your presentation. Crankbaits are hot right now, especially if you get wind and in that bite window first thing in the morning. There's usually always a bite window first thing for that first 30 to 45 minutes for a good crankbait bite. And then sometimes it'll pick up a little bit in the afternoon too, especially if you get some of that wind. But doing that, fishing secondary points has been good too, especially with the water falling. And then the brush bite's also starting to turn on with the water level going down a little bit. It's kind of sucking some of those fish that I did have on docks out a little bit to some of those brush piles, and it's been very consistent inside of those brush piles. I weighed a couple of my fish in that tournament as well out of brush piles. But as far as the bass side, that's kind of what we're looking at. You can catch those fish on a variety of different baits. Like I said, it's kind of whatever your confidence bait is, but they're all over the lake. You can catch them up the rivers, up shallow, doing the crankbait, a jig, a shaky head, go down the lake, maybe do a little bit more clear water presentation. And you just want to make sure that, you continually keep moving. I think in that tournament I had a cycle of maybe like 50 spots I hit during the day. And, 1 out of every 3 or 4 usually hits, So, a good solid day of catching on Lake Murray right now for bass. If the conditions are solid, you're catching probably in that 15 fish range, maybe 20 if it's a solid day. as far as number of fish caught during the day. If it's overcast, bite lasts all day. If it's sunny, bite windows typically first thing in the morning. Then it kind of lulls out for about 2 or 3 hours, and then it picks back up around 12:30ish or so is what we were seeing, kind of over the last month. And then obviously right before dark, there had been a great bite window. And, that changes a little bit with the moons too. Whenever you have a full moon, typically you're going to have a smaller bite window as well. So just kind of a couple tidbits there from the bass side. So one thing you said, Chip, that I wanted to kind of circle back to is tell me a little bit about the crappie. We've had a good bit of interest in the crappie, and obviously I see it all over the Lake Murray fishing reports page or the fishing page that we have. And, I just wanted to, get a little bit of info, kind of what you're seeing with that a little bit more in depth. I know you had a really good color that you were talking about last month. Are they still eating that exact same color for the crappie jigs?
Yeah, well, it's been, and I want to quick with your brush pile thing, because I have checked some brush lately. As we're just looking, and I've seen a ton of greenfish. You can look on the live scope and you can tell the difference between a crappie and a catfish and the largemouth. And there's been a lot of largemouth, circling the brush, swimming around the brush. Mm-hmm. And I actually fished some bridges this week, and I actually caught a couple on a crappie jig. They weren't big; they were 2s, 2.5s for the greenfish, but there's some on the bridges too.
Yeah,
and I'm sure I've seen several guys dropping spoons and stuff like that on them. But yeah, so the crappie, I've been still using those same 2 colors that we talked about. I think last time was the milky looking with a little glitter or glow to it. A lot of people call it monkey milk or milk money or just different things. Then also, I've been still using that same Jeff Rose jig. It's a he calls it Mayfly, so it's actually a clear jig with gold glitter in it. It's been really good, and all that's mainly been in the dirtier water. Which, by the way, we talked about dirty water. The upper lake is actually just a great color this year. Usually by January, February, we got mud.
Right.
And it's just been stained all winter. So it's been great up there. But, some of these guys that are, when you're looking for these open water crappie, you've got to utilize your side scan. Just get in these creeks or get up on the flats. I prefer the backs of the creeks right now. These fish are starting to stage for pre-spawn. It will be long line here before you know it. But, you just turn your side scan on, go down through there, and you just see them. Just big pods of them. Even up there in the rivers, seeing big pods of them just on the side scan. If you see the side scan and you don't have live scope, literally these fish aren't moving. You can mark them on your side scan, reach over there, push your button, push your waypoint, and go over and just start casting. It's just, it's kind of like a guessing game almost. The way we used to do it before we had live scope, we used to count. We're using like a 30-second jig with like a number. It depends on what brand you use, what number split shot is, but it's like usually like a number 3. It's basically like just a hair bigger than a 30-second split shot, and putting it about 18 inches above, and just casting it. And if you have to, if you say you're marking those fish, somewhere in that 10 to 12 foot range, 10 to 14 foot range, go get on the bank somewhere where you know how deep it is, cast that jig and count it down. And you can count when it hits the bottom. When it stops taking line, you knew how fast your jig is falling. You can cast it out, count, and then do a slow retrieve. I've always found the crappie on Murray tend to like a slow retrieve than instead of a jig, just a slow swimming. Excuse me. But yeah, it's almost time. It really is. It's getting close. I've caught a few fish long line. I love the long line bite. I'm actually, what is today? Today's Monday. It's a Wednesday. I'm going out pretty hard. I'm gonna go try some new areas that they should be in. So I'm gonna go out and start scouting some on Wednesday for some heavy long lining trips.
Perfect. Yeah.
One more. Yeah, one more thing too. You were talking about what made me think about the water temp. You mentioned we're 43, 44. We're sub 50s. Y'all be careful. I mean, it don't take anything. I always tell my kids and my customers, you kind of live by the 155, tail or whatever. So basically, you fall in that water, you have 1 minute to calm down, catch your bearings, get your bearings. You have 1 minute. You have 5 minutes to figure out how to get out of the water, and you have 5 minutes to start getting warm or hypothermia will set in. So you're looking at about 11 minutes in sub 50-degree water that, it's life or death. So just pay attention to that. I mean, as these colder water temps are getting there, pay attention to what you're doing. That little extra step, that you normally just, jump down off the boat or jumping down off the deck or something like that, man. One slip and you're in the water.
Yeah, and inflatable life jackets too. If you've got those, just throw them on. Maybe have that throwable out and kind of accessible with a rope tied to it, just so you're prepared. Because I mean, exactly what Chip's saying. Like, I mean, when it gets this cold, especially if you have a really cold day too, I mean, you fall in the water, it's not good news at all. So just stay safe if you're going to fish this time of the year. It can be super rewarding. Like we're saying, a lot of times this time of the year, you can catch some of the biggest fish of the year. For the next, I'd say probably 2 or 3 months, you're going to see that. Chip, what else you got? Anything else to add before we sign off?
I think we're good. I don't know how much really people watch your video, for my end of the thing. Hopefully they do.
Oh,
but
yeah, sure.
if y'all are really starting to think about these springtime trips, give me a call. I literally have like 14, maybe 15 days available in March. They're booking up. April's booking up fast. I got plenty of days in February. Still a good time to fish, but that spring, if you're interested in that spring stuff, give me a shout, because there's not much left. There's very few weekends left. There's some Sundays, but pretty much Saturdays are gone. Fridays are gone. So give me a call. We'll get you out there.
Yep. Same thing on the bass side as well. We've already started booking some trips in March, April, February. So if you want anything in that time period, definitely need to reach out relatively quickly. And then obviously May for some of those top water schooling largemouth trips, give me a shout. With that, we appreciate y'all watching, and hopefully this is helpful to you, and we're kind of opening the playbook on what we're seeing and some of the things that we're doing, so that you're more successful on the water. Make sure, remember to like and subscribe it. Try and grow the channel a little bit. If you got any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments, and we'll make sure we address them in the next video. With that, we're going to sign off, and I hope that you have a good next trip on the water.